this event. We're doing that so that we can send out the recording to people that weren't able to be here, who registered, and that sort of thing. And it will be, it'll also include slides that were used today and other resources mentioned throughout the event as well. And if you're joining us for the first time this week, welcome to Affordable Housing Week. This is Pierce County Affordable Housing Week, and Tacoma-Pierce County Affordable Housing Consortium is hosting. We're really excited for all these events we've had so far and the events that we're going to continue to have today, tomorrow, and Friday. We had a great panel this morning. Thanks to Corey for being on both panels today. You're a rock star, and we appreciate you very much. And to all of our other panelists, we're really excited for this conversation. Today's discussion is titled Opening Doors, Empowering Black Homeownership Across the Continuum. And we're going to be exploring the critical role of home ownership in addressing critical disparities and promoting economic equity within Black communities. This event is also sponsored by Beacon Development Group and WSECU, and we would like to give a special thanks to our title sponsor, U.S. Bank. Jeff Cruz is here from U.S. Bank. I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction of the event today, Jeff, and then I'm going to give you a moment.
I'm gonna leave. I can't.
And then we're going to have a moment for you to tell us about your work with U.S. Bank. So we're going to start with a quick land acknowledgement. I would like to make this land acknowledgement. We are grateful. We gratefully honor and acknowledge that we rest on the traditional lands of the Puyallup people. The Puyallup people have lived on this land since the beginning of time. They are still here today. They live, work, raise their children, take care of their community, and continue to practice their traditional ways today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is just a small step forward to true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the Indigenous people of this land and beyond. We want to acknowledge the histories and dispossessions and forced removal and reflect on the histories and ways that honor the memory of those dispossessed and keep us committed to the social cause of social justice for Indigenous populations. And as you probably already know, and I already mentioned, it is Affordable Housing Week in Pierce County. So we've got some more exciting events today. We've got a walking tour up in Hilltop today at 2:30. We've got a movie showing at 5 p.m. today at the Grand. Apparently you can't view this this documentary in many places. So, and we're going to have the director there to speak about his work and the content of the video. I'm going to put our website page for the Affordable Housing Week events in the chat. You go to that link, it'll tell you all of the events and how to register for them, a little bit more information about them, where they are, if they're in person, that kind of thing. And so for this afternoon's panel, we're going to have a panel style discussion. First, I'm going to briefly introduce our panel and give Jeff Cruz from U.S. Bank a moment to describe what his work is like. And then, so some of our panelists today are going to have slides for us. Some of them will not, and I'll be prompting them with questions. So it'll be kind of a loosey-goosey question and answer for those 15 minutes for each panelist. And then after each panelist has had their time to speak and answer questions, we're going to open it up to the whole group, the whole audience, ask questions, Q&A, discussion, that kind of thing. And so right before we get into it, I'd like to introduce myself for a quick moment and my organization. My name is Casey Twiggs, and I'm the membership coordinator for the Affordable Housing Consortium. I'm thrilled to be your host. Our nonprofit is a membership-based organization that provides public education, advocacy, and support for the expansion of affordable housing within Pierce County. One way that we do this is by educating the public on the need for affordable housing by hosting virtual events such as this one, special meetings, and collecting data to share with the public on the need for housing and policy. We also advocate at the state and local level for policies and funding that will support the creation of more affordable housing, as well as work to bolster the work of our members. Our consortium serves as a beacon for public education, advocacy, and support for affordable housing initiatives across Pierce County. And we aim to break down systemic barriers that have historically hindered Black Americans' success and access to homeownership opportunities. With about 60 dedicated members, ranging from housing developers to individual activists and advocates, our organization tirelessly works to foster communities where everyone has a safe and healthy access to affordable homes. So for today's topic, despite efforts to bridge this gap, the home ownership rates for Black households remains considerably low compared to white households. In Tacoma, from 1990 to 2020, we've seen a troubling trend of stagnant or declining home ownership rates among Black households, while other racial groups have seen stability or growth. So statewide, the home ownership gap is stark, with BIPOC households owning homes at a rate of 49% compared to 68% for non-Hispanic white households. That's a 19% disparity. Historically, discriminatory practices like redlining and racial covenants, although no longer legally enforceable, continue to influence neighborhood compositions and perceptions, perpetuating segregation in our communities. Additionally, racial bias in property appraisals and mortgage lending means that Black and Hispanic applicants often face higher interest rates and valuations that do not reflect the true value of their homes, compounding racial and financial strain and limiting equity building. And these barriers are not just relics, but ongoing hurdles we need concerted action and strategic policy interventions for. Today, we're going to hear from experts actively working to empower Black homeownership and dismantle the obstacles that stand in the way of economic parity. But right before we get into our panel discussion, I would like to thank our title sponsor, U.S. Bank, for supporting our whole Affordable Housing Week. Thank you to Jeff Cruz, mortgage sales manager for U.S. Bank. I would like to now let Jeff have a few words to explain what it is that you do.
Sure. Thanks, Casey and the panel. And I just want to let the consortium know that thanks for letting us sponsor this week-long event. It's for a great cause. And so what I do, I'm all of South King County and Pierce County. I have about 35 branches, and in those branches we have different programs that we have for Black homeownership, and also regardless of race, we try to meet the Black homeownership different programs that we have. For instance, in February of 2024, there's 44% of Black homeownership out of 100, and Hispanic is 50%. 62% is Asian Americans and 72% white. So there's a big disparity that we're trying to meet at U.S. Bank. We're giving grants, and we also have a new program coming out. It's in 6 states right now. That's across the country, and it'll be in Washington soon. But it's called the Access Home Loan, and what that gives us grants and a free second mortgage with no interest and no payments for 30 years. It gives this program up to $12,500 for their down payment and towards closing costs. So that helps the gap a little bit. Also, in Pierce County, families over 100,000, 84% of homeownerships are white, 66% are Black homeownerships, and families between 50,000 and 75,000. 65% are white and 33% are Black homeowners. So there's such a big disparity that we're trying to gap here. So U.S. Bank has 2 great programs. One I mentioned, it's called the American Dream, and that allows $10,000 grant money to give to underprivileged communities. They just have to be in a census tract, and we make sure that they're in a census tract, and we can give them actually it's free money. It's a free $10,000 gift by U.S. Bank, not a gift, but it's a silent second mortgage, and you don't have to pay it back until you sell the home. So it could be 30 years. There's no interest, no payments for 30 years. this new program, the Access Home Loan, that's coming down. It's there's 6 areas in California, Minnesota, Illinois. There's about 6 states that have this program right now. And probably by the end of the year, we'll have that program as well. And that's up to $12,500. So, and that's grants. So that's not a second mortgage, that you don't have to pay the grant back, of course. So there's a lot of things happening at US Bank, and I just want to thank the panel and everybody joining here. Have a great week, and I'm sure I'll see you tonight. I'll be at the premiere for the movie, and then tomorrow at the reception as well. We have a strong showing at US Bank. So I just want to say thank you, and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate your work. All right. Now we're gonna dive into introducing our panelists really quick. I'm gonna briefly introduce our panelists. We have 4 today, and then we'll jump right into our discussion. So we've got Champagne Lewis. She's a community advocate and realtor for the Jones Collective and EXP Realty. I hope I'm saying that right. Corey Orvold with the Coldwell Banker and Tacoma Urban League, who will be speaking about the BHI, Black Homeownership Initiative. Maureen Fife, Executive Director of the Tacoma-Pierce County Habitat for Humanity. And Amy Hoyte, Executive Director for Rebuilding Together South Sound. And we are going to start with Champagne. You are our first panelist. Did you have slides? I can't remember if you had slides or not.
I don't have slides. We're just doing Q&A.
Perfect. All right. So let's start off, Champagne. Let's start off with just tell us a little bit about you and your work. You know, who are you, and what brought you to the work that you're doing now, and what are you focused on right now?
So again, my name is Champagne Lewis. I started real estate in 2018 when I started doing property management, so multifamily property management. And that brought me to single family purchase and sales in 2021. And I predominantly support home buyers in King and Pierce County. And again, I am on the Jones Collective, which is a Black team, and I really enjoy that because that is my sphere that I like to engage, and it helps me to reach out to Black home buyers and really engage with them and support them with a lot of the housing needs and disparities that I see on a daily basis. And that's really what has engaged me and keeps me engaged in the work that I do.
Absolutely. And so can you discuss a little bit about the housing needs and disparities that you're seeing around BIPOC individuals, households, first-time home buyers? What are some of the needs and maybe barriers?
So housing needs and disparities among Black people and also Brown and Indigenous and other peoples of color households and also first-time home buyer underscore the critical importance of home ownership readiness. So home readiness is crucial, and it is the need right now. A household is considered ownership ready when housing costs do not burden them and have a total household income exceeding 100% of the area median income. And this means $80,200 within Pierce County. And this was a study in 2019. So systemic barriers have left many, particularly Black people, financially unprepared for home ownership, causing limited access, poor credit, and having high debt and inadequate savings. There is an analysis from 2020 Home Mortgage Disclosure Act that reveals the disparities in mortgage loan approvals among different racial groups. Specifically, only 51% of applications submitted by Black applicants and 54% by Hispanic applicants resulted in loan approvals, compared to 65% of white applicants who resulted in loan approvals. The primary reason for mortgage loan denials in Tacoma in 2020 were predominantly debt to income ratio, which was 28%, and credit history at 23%. So beyond expanding simply affordable housing, we must assist Black and Brown and Indigenous households in preparing to purchase homes. While homebuyer resources are available, they can be challenging to locate as well as navigate. While we may not always be able to alter mortgage applications requirements at this time, it's important to increase awareness around credit and provide support to improve credit history so that we can empower individuals to meet mortgage application requirements. So service providers play a crucial role in supporting potential home buyers through the mortgage application and lending process by proactively guiding applicants and providing them to help them understand and address the requirements of obtaining a mortgage. So service providers can enhance readiness and access to home ownership for opportunities for Black households. So it's really about supporting people in becoming ready and understanding what that looks like to prepare themselves to purchase a home.
Yeah, okay. You're full of information. I love it. So what are you seeing as, so you talked about some of the barriers and the needs in the first time home buying process. But what about like during the purchasing process specifically? Are you seeing different things there, or is it all kind of similar than what you just described?
So what challenges are the clients facing specifically during the purchase process?
Yeah. And is that, yeah, I guess that's the question.
Yeah. So it depends on how a client enters into the process, because each client comes in with a different need. But I would say one of the biggest factors is debt to income ratio and credit needs. So again, and this is an example that I can give right now. So I had a client text me and she's saying, I'm looking for a home. And I say, that's great to hear. Where are you at in the process? She said, I received your information from a friend and I want to know what I qualify for. So we started group text with myself and a home loan specialist. And this home loan specialist gives the person a call. And the next text message I receive is, this person, the prospective home buyer, needs to work on their credit. And so they may have sufficient funds, but their debt to income is unfavorable to what they would need to have a qualifying mortgage loan, especially in the area in which we're in, Washington, Pierce County, or King County. So one of the challenges that we're having is moving people from rent, from being rent ready, moving them through a pipeline, basically, so that they can go through the home buying process, and get to the end of the journey, because anyone can actually buy a home. It just is really a journey. And so that's what we are having to express to buyers, is that it is never a no, and it's not even a not right now. It's just, these are the next steps to the process. And that's always the conversation that we're having.
Yeah, and you guys are kind of not hand holding, but walking along with them with the process, or walking along with them through the process. At least it sounds like you're kind of consulting with them. I've done this part. What's the next step? Is that kind of what you're offering as well, or?
I would say it depends on the specific person, individual, and their family, and what their needs are. So not every person or family has the same home buying needs. And if they need more hand holding, then that's something that we'll need to do, because there's pre-purchase counseling, and there's pre-purchase counseling, and there are programs to diminish debt, or to support people and in I would say establishing better credit. So we will handhold if that's something that needs to be done, or walk them through the process, because something that is an actual possibility is something called buyer's fatigue, because the challenge of the home buying process is a buyer has an expectation of what it looks like to buy a home versus the reality of what it actually takes to buy a home in the market in which we're in.
Yeah, and it is it is a difficult market, especially right now. Well, Champagne, I appreciate you answering the questions that I have. I know that other people's probably have questions for you as well, when the Q&A is ready. But since we have 4 panelists, I'm gonna not have the not gonna have you have to answer any more of my questions right now. But you're doing such important work. You are helping people get into the process that like everybody wants to own a home. Maybe that's not everybody's goal, but it's a security thing. There's lots of things attached to it. Everybody does it for lots of different reasons. And we need people like you helping to understand the process. And I still have a few more questions for you if that allows at the end. So we're gonna move to our second panelist of the day, Corey Orvold. So you're gonna be talking about BHI, and you if anybody was in the panel this morning, you've met Corey already. But Corey, I'd like for you to go ahead and reintroduce yourself a little bit. Tacoma Urban League, and like what you do with Coldwell Banker and Black Home Initiative.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me again. So my name is Corey Orvold. I'm a managing broker. What that means is I have a higher level of real estate license. Here in Washington, there's 2 levels of real estate license. There's the broker, and then there's a managing broker. So I'm actually allowed to mentor new brokers. The first 2 years, they have to be underneath someone that holds my license. I also have the ability to own my own office. So that's a little bit about real estate really quick. So probably about 6.5, 7 years ago, I was approached by Senator Tawana Nobles and Mayor Victoria Woodards, and they had asked me if I would help the Tacoma Urban League with homebuyer classes. So we started the classes. Really, the whole thought was to help community members that are African American purchase homes. We saw in 2016 a lot of investors that were really preying on our historically Black communities, the Hilltop, East Tacoma, and really trying to have avenues, I guess, to flip houses in the area and really pushing us out of the neighborhood. The African American community, we were being forced out to further south, and also into rentals. And so it got to be really a dire conversation that we were having. And so we have these classes every second Saturday. They do qualify for the Washington State Housing Finance Commission down payment assistance. We also try to help community members with maybe if it's not traditional means purchasing, we'll try to help connect them with other community resources that will help them become homeowners. If you're familiar with the Tacoma Urban League, we have 5 initiatives: housing, health, education, employment, and social justice. And so also part of my role is we have home maintenance classes that we offer. Again, when we saw that predatory investing going on, we really wanted to empower community members to stay in their homes. And so that's also teaching, here's some of the work you can do on your home, so you don't have that deferred maintenance. And then here's some of the work that possibly you might need to hire somebody. Also within my role, we work as a partnership with Windermere Professional Partners and Windermere Abode. We are helping to bring more Black brokers, real estate brokers, into real estate. So Windermere has this excellent program where they actually offer a scholarship to community members that are interested in real estate. We also, I guess, talking about my role more as an advocate at the Tacoma Urban League, anything housing related, the Tacoma Urban League will send to me. So I'm 100% volunteer, but if there's a community member that is experiencing some sort of housing issue, anything, it could be comps, whether, maybe one of those investors came through and offered to purchase their home, they want to know what their home value is, they'll come to me and, I'll run some numbers and say, here's what I think your home is worth. I shared this morning, and I saw a lot of looks on some of the folks' faces, but we also have some issues in 2024. We have some issues with folks that decide that who they want, or think they can decide who they want and who they don't want as neighbors. And so we've actually had someone that reached out to the Tacoma Urban League. She is a homeowner in Tacoma, and her neighbors got together, made a petition, and knocked on her door to present it to her to say, get out of our neighborhood. We all voted. We don't want you in our neighborhood. She reached out to the Tacoma Urban League. She's actually a dear friend of mine at this point, because we've talked about it so many times of just like, how can this happen in this day and age, right? You're a homeowner. You have the right to decide where you want to live. Your neighbors don't get to decide that we're going to take a petition. I mean, this isn't Survivor, right? We also have homeowners that face eminent domain where, the county or city came through and said, you know what, we want your land for some sort of public benefit, and they want to know maybe what their house is worth or something like that. Then we also have folks that reach out that need referrals for attorneys, just anything that the community needs. That's kind of when I get involved and become an advocate. So a few years ago, the Tacoma Urban League was approached by the Black Home Initiative, and we really jumped on board because it's something that we're passionate about. The Urban League as a national organization is really pushing Black homeownership. As Champaign shared, we are way behind when it comes to homeownership compared to our white counterparts. And so the Urban League jumped on board. Champaign and I both are really part of the outreach for the Black Home Initiative. So really what our goal is to bring really what we do. I guess I should go back. Let me explain what the Black Home Initiative is. So our goal is to get 1,500 community members, renters, wherever they are in the community, into home ownership. And so what that looks like is it's a network of people. It's not an organization. It's a network of professionals. Like Champagne and myself are obviously both in real estate, but what we do is we're going to help community members get into homes. So we're going to work with HUD certified housing counselors. We're going to work with BHI approved lenders. And we really want to focus in that network of serving the Black community. What that looks like is also having the conversations and the understanding that there's so much trauma that's happened in the Black community that is hindering home ownership. I've shared this morning as well. I was raised by a single Black father, and my father was doing a rent to own home, and 2 years in, he was ready to purchase, and the landlord saw his face for the very first time and decided the house was no longer going to be sold, especially to a Black man with his children. And so at a very young age, I was about 8, we had to basically be uprooted, and we had to move across town and start a whole new life in a new house. And it never made sense to me. And so that was one of the things that was really important. And that's when we talk about home ownership, that stability, right? Nobody can come to you, even your neighbors that decide they don't want you to be there. They don't get to come to you and say, hey, we don't want you on our block anymore. You don't belong. And so really that's what the important thing is, that we all have to maintain and understand, because I know, we can all share stories of trauma with you and things that we've seen. And so really learning how to communicate with the community, and like Champagne shared, of not saying, no, you're not going to get the house. It's not right now. Here's what we need to work on. And so really understanding how to communicate with community members, and how to really be like that motivational coach, that marriage counselor when we need to, the advocate, the guide. We have to be all those different roles, because our goal is to get 1,500 community members into home ownership.
Absolutely. So within BHI, what are some recent accomplishments of BHI within the last year, since you've been working with them, or maybe things on the horizon that you're really excited about?
So I'm really excited. We have a great team put together. We get to share our work. So we're always looking for events to table. We're always looking for events to, we have tonight where we're coming and we're sharing BHI information. If we have the opportunity to get before people. We had last week we were tabling an event, and it was there weren't a lot of BIPOC individuals there. But what we were able to do is say, hey, you know what? Maybe you don't fit the Black Home Initiative. However, you probably know someone that does. And so really using those opportunities to share the word. And then, we've had several people like, oh, you know what, my buddy, And so really that's what our goal is to really spread the word, to do the work, to work as a network, as a community, to make this come to fruition. Our successes are really, we've already helped, I don't have the particular number, but we've already helped several folks get into home ownership. I kind of want to share a recent story that I have with a gentleman that he's one of 8 children, and he had a situation back in November where he was working to purchase a home from a local builder, and the builder took 3 separate pictures of him. He's African American. They took 3 separate pictures of him, including one picture where they asked him to hold up a sign that says sold, which is a really tone deaf thing when you think of an African American community member being asked to hold a sign that says sold. I understand that you're trying to say that they bought the house, but it's completely inappropriate. So he did that. They told him that this is your house, and he drove by and his excitement to see his house one day, and they were showing it to someone else. And he came to the Urban League completely defeated, right? And I had the pleasure of calling him not too long ago and letting him know that he actually got his offer accepted on a house. And usually that's like a big celebratory event for the client, but he flipped it around and he actually had me crying, because it was one of those things when he's telling me this is going to be a game changer for me, but also my family, my adult children, my 7 brothers and sisters. No one in our family has ever owned a home. So he's a first generation home buyer. And he just said, you know, my family was kind of falling apart. We never had a gathering space. He's like, this house is going to be our gathering space. This is going to be where our family is kind of grounded. We can get together. We can have birthday celebrations. We can have Easter. We can have Christmas. And it was such a celebratory event. And sorry to get sidetracked, but I mean, it's stories like that. And I think that's one of 1,500. So we're going to have tons more stories to share with the community of the work that we're doing, but we are already out in the community and we are working towards our goal.
Thank you so much, Corey. Yeah, you are. Yeah, y'all are, it's exciting. You're making lots of work happen. And you know, it even if you're not a Black person looking to buy a home, even if you are a white person that already owns a home, this conversation is for everybody, you know, and it's about advocacy. It's about education. It's about just having the conversation. You can be an advocate for things that you don't particularly qualify for or need. You know, it's about community, and that's why we're all in this room, you know. We're passionate about these topics, and I appreciate you for the work that you do and the way that you do it, really.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey. Okay, so we're gonna move to our third panelist of this event. Maureen, Fife, you are up. If you want to go ahead and kind of talk about what is Habitat for Humanity, what, if people don't already know what y'all do, but what are you guys doing in terms of BHI, and Black home ownership, and in that space, what is Habitat doing? If you're speaking, you're on mute.
Someday I'll figure this out. Okay.
Hey, yeah, well,
Well,
I might not, so.
Thanks. I'm going to share my screen, and I promise this won't be death by PowerPoint, but numbers wise, I like numbers, and it's easier to kind of get a sense of the points I'm trying to make, so we can do that. So at Habitat, we have been doing homeownership a long time, and we are really thrilled to be part of the Black Home Initiative. So we do affordable homeownership opportunities. We are a HUD certified housing counseling agency. So we do housing counseling and financial coaching. We walk with people on their journey to be a home buyer. And it's a free service. It doesn't matter if you're buying on the market or if you're buying a Habitat house. But I would say anyone that wants to buy a house should go through one session with our counselors, because it is so educational. And the point that Champagne made about being buyer ready puts you in the driver's seat. You need to be educated to do that. We also do foreclosure prevention, because we want folks to be able to keep their homes. And so that's a big thing. And we do aging in place home modifications, so seniors can age safely in their houses. Who we serve. Our homebuyer applicants are 60 to 80% of area median income. Historically, 60% of our homebuyers are people of color. 30% of them identify as Black. And the majority of our homebuyers are actually single moms with children. So you've already heard some horrific numbers. We are actually, the housing gap is worse now for people of color than it was in 1960 when discrimination was legal through redlining. We have a long way to catch up. We need 143,000 households of color to achieve homeownership before we reach a balance. So it is, these numbers are devastating. We are far behind. And a little more sticker shock, the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in Tacoma is about $1,600 a month. And the average listing for a single family home is about $600,000. And I think the sale price now, the median sale price was now about $550 in the most recent Realtor study. So it's astounding. It's so hard to get into the market for your first home. And so I don't know if anybody remembers the mortgage crisis of 2010, which is how we got here. When the mortgage crisis happened in 2008 to 2010, home values crashed. The market crashed. In Washington State, we were ground zero. City of Tacoma was #1 in foreclosures and Pierce County was #2. And buyers of color were hit the hardest with those foreclosures. Subprime mortgages were out there in full tilt. One of the reasons why the crash happened, there were lenders lending 100% of the value of a home to 125%. There were interest-only loans. There were adjustable rate mortgages. When the market crashed, 40% of the homes that were sold finally were sold at a loss. So people that bought homes were underwater. So all that led to new mortgage regulations, which gets back to underwriting. It's hard to qualify for a house. The government made sure that we weren't going to be able to sell people more of a house than they could reasonably afford to pay, which meant they needed to have decent credit and decent income. So some of these numbers to me are kind of astounding. If you were going to buy, so this is kind of wonky, and I'm wonky, I guess, a conventional $500,000 home, $495 is a loan amount. You would have to have $15,000 as a down payment, which could be your own money, or maybe it's combined with down payment assistance. At a 6.5% interest rate, your payment would be a little over $3,000 a month. And that's assuming mortgage taxes, insurance. And then you would also, because you didn't put 20% down, you would have to pay mortgage insurance of another $320 a month. And your estimated monthly income to afford all of that would be about $11,000. So getting into a loan is tough. It's very hard to qualify. And part of our problem in Tacoma is we have an income issue. This was a median household income study done a couple of years ago. A white household had an income of about $82,000 a year. A Black household had $51,000 median income. So that's only 62% of what white households are earning. So income is a big issue for us here for Black households. We need to adjust that as well. At Habitat, because we serve families to 80 to 80% AMI, we know there's an enormous gap of what people can afford. And so we changed our model a few years ago to sell much like a land trust. And so people agree to 1.5% cap of equity per year to the house they buy. So here's a typical homeowner for us. Was a single mom with 3 kids. She earned $66,000 a year. Her home that we built appraised a couple of years ago at $455,000. We sold it to her for $300,000. We had already down payment assistance for her of $50,000. So that meant her first mortgage was $250,000. And her monthly payment mortgage, land lease, taxes, insurance, and interest was $1,600 a month. So she was able to become a homeowner with that. Now, if she were going to sell that house, we figured that with a modest 3% increase in home value, after 10 years, she could walk with about $78,000. And after 20 years, she would walk with about $214,000. And in addition, if she hadn't purchased, she not only would have had that equity, but after 10 years, she would have paid about $35,000 in rent out the door with nothing to show for it. So it's, I'm all about home ownership. It is the traditional pathway for people to build generational wealth. And so we're super excited to have a partnership with Tacoma Urban League called Pathways to Homeownership, where we have 2 housing counselors stationed at Tacoma Urban League 2 days a week. And people can come in and chat. We can set up also one-on-one counseling sessions outside of those 2 days. We're really trying hard to build a culture of affordable home ownership in our community. And so not only are we building new homes still, but we're buying about 80 houses, single-family houses in the Parkland and Spanaway and South Tacoma area and rehabbing them. So we have lots of single-family detached home ownership opportunities as well for folks. So there's a mountain of opportunity, but the first step, I think the 2 things that one is being ready and being educated. And sometimes that journey takes a while, right? It's not an overnight thing. By fixing your credit, reducing your debt, getting your income lined up, knowing what you'll have to come up with for a down payment, what your down payment resources are. The competition is tough. There are not many houses under $500,000 on the MLS. There's certainly not enough under $750,000. And we are a growing area. If you look at the 2020 growth numbers projected for our area, they're astounding. So the competition will remain stiff. So sorry, I didn't mean to like lull you all into a dull sleep, but it is an intense time, and Black homeownership as a real focus for us at Habitat is important, and it should be in our community. We're a diverse community, and that should be reflected in our homeownership rates. So I'm off my soapbox.
I love it. Thank you, Maureen. Lots of really impressive numbers. And yeah, astounding is the word that kept coming up for me. You know, I mean, you know what the situation is if you focus on this topic, but yeah, numbers don't really lie. So
No.
yeah, and I'm in that process right now, you know. I'm originally from Georgia, and seeing the housing prices compared to out here is whoo, little steeper. But you know, it's a process, and there are services in our community helping us with this process. So thank you to Habitat for their work on BHI initiatives, Black homeownership focus, and homeownership in Pierce County in general. So we appreciate you so much. Thank you, Maureen.
Sure.
Amy Hoyte, you are up next. Rebuilding Together South Sound. What does Rebuilding Together do in the South Sound area, and how are you guys connected to Black home ownership in Pierce County?
Thank you, Casey. Let's see if I can get my slides to share. Perfect. Can you see those okay?
I see it. It doesn't look like it's in, maybe it's in presenter view. I just can't tell, but
Interesting.
I see your things at the bottom, but not a ton of them.
That's so strange. Sorry about that. It's not showing full screen here for me, and it's doing something super strange, so I'm not exactly sure.
I mean, your slide is pretty much the whole thing.
Okay,
So
that is good
you can
enough.
see it. Yeah.
So I am Amy Hoyte. I am the executive director at Rebuilding Together South Sound. We provide free home repairs and home modifications for low-income homeowners. And so the community that we work with are people who have achieved home ownership. They are at or below 50% of the area median income. Each year as we run our numbers, it's a little bit surprising. Most of our homeowners actually end up being below 30% of area median income. A lot of the most common homeowner that we end up working with is a woman who maybe has lost her partner after, several years and has lived in her home for 20 plus years and is able to survive on Social Security income because the house is paid off. And in that case, they have enough money to kind of eke it through each month. They might have to decide potentially between extra food or their medications. But when the water heater breaks, when there's a leak in the roof, it's not something that they can manage on their own. And so that's where we can come into the picture. We also do a lot of home modifications, adding wheelchair ramps, other modifications that help because a home doesn't age with a person. And we want people to be able to stay in their homes for as long as possible. Some of the work that we've been doing in the last couple of years, we had a community health worker with us last year, and she did a phenomenal survey of our recent clients. And through her work, our board has been working on a community resource guide. And I'm trying to make it change the slide, and there we go. I had hoped that the community resource guide was going to be up today, but in a fluke of people being off, we couldn't actually get it uploaded on the website once it was finished. So within the next week, this should be up on our website, and it will have clickable links to a lot of community resources. We try to engage with our homeowners as much as we can, because one of the barriers that we do find is trust for people who are mostly homebound and letting people kind of into their lives. And so we try to share as much as we can to help keep them safe and sound. Some of the work that we've been doing over the last few years is really thinking about in how can we increase our service to BIPOC households. And so in doing a census data analysis, I kind of learned through the numbers that if we look at the very low income homeowner racial makeup, which is the percentage of low income homeowners who are Black, Native, Asian, and we compare them to the numbers where we were serving, we learned that we had a really big gap in Black and Hispanic homeowners. And so once we learned that, we wanted to make sure that we were finding ways to do much deeper and much more connected outreach, which is one of the reasons we brought in a community health worker. She did a lot of great outreach in the last year. The biggest barrier we find is trust. It is hard for people to understand that there's someone who'll come in and make home repairs and not charge them. And a lot of people that we have worked with in the past have been taken advantage of. And so trust is huge. So we've done a lot of work building relationships with potential clients through other organizations that they already trust. We are partnering with the Tacoma Urban League and with the Tacoma Tool Library with these home maintenance workshops. We are on the Sustaining Existing Homeowners cohort with the Black Home Initiative. And so we're trying to find the best way to build a trusting relationship so that they understand that we really can come in and help keep their home safe and bring it to a place where they can live more securely. some of the it's finally working. Like some of it's working. Our numbers last year went up. We 19% of the clients that we served last year were Black families, Black-owned homes, compared to that 9% in 2021. And so really we're working just hard to get the word out and ensure that people actually know about our services, because we have a lot of grants, federal grants, private grants. We bring in as much funding as we can so that we can put it back out and help as many homeowners as possible. Some of the things that we have done to continue to try to remove barriers is we've tried to make our application more accessible and understandable. Sometimes it looks like too much work and sometimes it looks like less, where we have a few pages of instructions now, which to me maybe feels daunting. At the same time, it might answer those questions that people have before when they would have either had to call or thought that there was a barrier or thought someone was asking for information for no reasons, because sometimes we collect data we don't have to collect. So we've tried to do that with our instructions. And just try to remove any barriers, try to help people fill out applications if they have a challenge. We will do it over the phone with people. We have sometimes taken partial applications to a home assessment with us and had them finish filling it out and sign it while we're there. And so whatever it is that we can do to remove barriers and ensure people have access to our services, we try to make happen.
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, you guys are in a pretty unique spot, and offering something that without that assistance can really put people in a hole and can and potentially threaten their home ownership and their housing security. So getting people into home ownership is one thing, and then keeping people in homes is another thing. Even if you are a homeowner, like Corey was saying, your placement, your location isn't always as secure as it should be. And so, yeah, all of us together having this conversation, I think we're bringing things to light. I mean, I hadn't really ever thought about, the maintenance after you get into a home. I mean, I know it's your responsibility, but I had no idea that before I met Amy that there was an organization in town helping homeowners to do that. So I thank you, Amy. Thank you very much for your presentation. Yeah, we're right at 1 o'clock, you guys. We are chugging along right on schedule. And so now I want to open it up to anyone in the room that has a question. You can throw that question into the chat and I'll read it for you. Or you can just use the raise hand function, and we'll call on you to ask your question in your own words. And if you can't find the raise hand button, it's kind of hidden in there. Just take yourself off mute and feel free to ask your question or state your comment or anything. This is an open opportunity for questions and comments. And if you're somebody in the room that's thinking, hey, I wonder if if any of these people have talked to this person, or if you've got some networking to do, bring it up here. That would be great. Dawa, do you want to come on and I know you put the community land trust panel in the chat, and that's there for you guys to read and download the flyer, but would you like to speak to it in words? I can't hear you. Hey, Dawa, I can't hear you. It looks like you're unmuted, but I can't hear sound.
Can you hear me now?
There he is.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Dawa Goes Behind. I'm the executive director of the Pierce County Community Land Trust. I just joined the organization this month. I'm leaving Habitat. I just left Habitat for Humanity from Seattle, King County. So I know a lot about the Habitat model. but also been a homeless advocate, housing advocate. I also own a community land trust in Seattle. And so we wanted to introduce you to the community land trust model on how it can solve a lot of these issues as far as affordability, keeping the land in the community. We're looking forward to working with the indigenous community in Pierce County. We're looking forward to working with the Latinx community, and specifically the Black community, because that's where it starts, right? If we can solve those issues, you can solve pretty much a lot of issues. So I just wanted to really open that up and build some relationships in here with folks in Pierce County. I know that you're used to probably seeing Jesse. He's the president of the Pierce County Community Land Trust, but this is the new face on the block. I was a member of the Black Home Initiative when I was in Seattle. They're doing great work. I want to find more ways to partner with them because it's like the Black Hole Initiative is a great initiative. But if there's no affordable market rate housing, it's going to be hard to meet that goal. And so we're looking forward to working with even partnering with Habitat for Humanity on outreach and really pushing that affordability market, because as a homeowner, as a social worker, I have an MSW, and I've been a social worker for about 15 years. And so many of you know, working in nonprofits, you're making under 80% AMI, right? And that's with an advanced degree. And it was hard to buy. So when I got into my community land trust, we were able to excel in our careers. My daughter's, has been living in the home for 5 years now, and it's just been great for the family, right? We've been able to save money, to invest, etc. And so, and our mortgage has been 1,600, right? And that's I'm currently, we're moving from West Seattle into Tacoma this month, but that was amazing for us, right? To be able to afford that and stay in the metropolitan city, if you will. So I just want to, open up the perspective and some alternatives to solving some of these issues. And I really, really, really want to work with anyone on the land trust. We're a startup. A Habitat at some point was a startup, at some point. And so we're needing funding, right? We're also grant writing and philanthropy and all of the above. So, that is the case. We have a parcel of land. We're building about 10 units, and then we have another parcel with another 10 units. But we're trying to fill our portfolio so we can get into the mid-rising, right? We can get into condos, etc. So we can have shared equity, and equity can build out over time. We've been able to build equity within my community land trust, so I can buy market rate. Right now, I'm being able to buy market rate this month because we've been able to build equity in the community land trust I currently live in, which is a homestead community land trust. So yeah, just wanted to introduce myself, invite you to the community land trust conversation and the legislative forum. And that'll be May 10th, Friday at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. At Greater Christ Temple Church. And so that's about it. And any questions, I can ask any questions if you want to. I don't want to take over since I'm not on the panel, but I do want to just sort of offer some other perspectives and other alternatives into homeownership.
Thank you so much, Dawa. Yeah, we've got a couple people in the chat just rooting you on. Donna says, I'm an affordable housing consultant and provide support to CLTs and their favorite areas of to support. And that's great. Yeah, community land trusts are really valuable. And yeah, if you're interested in that conversation, maybe if you don't even really know what that means, definitely come in person to that community land trust conversation. It overlaps very well with this one.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
One thing too, the community land trust model was created by Black individuals in the South.
that model was created in Alabama to save parcels of land for developers. And to so that's hopping on the shoulders of the ancestors and those that have done this work before, to continue the community land trust to be a way to keep land in the Black community and indigenous community and Latinx community, et cetera. So we're not repeating these things, when it's time for my daughter to buy, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for your work, and we're excited to hear more about that it's going to be, Tammy, that's going to be on Friday. I'm going to put the link to that in the chat really quick. And yeah, I've got a couple of other things in the chat really quick. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff works with a consulting group that authored the state's $2 million community reinvestment plan. Consult with BHI to connect people and to those resources being released by the state in batches over the next few months. So if you want to connect with Jeff, you can do that via the chat as well. Share emails. Thank you, Maureen. Covenant Reinvestment Act funded DPA. Funded DPA will hopefully be open for business in July. Thank you, Bambi. Yeah, Covenant Homeownership Program. Absolutely. July 1st. Disbursement start. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that. How are we doing on questions? Does anybody have any questions for our panelists? We've got about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes or so, and we've got plenty of time for questions, discussion. There's lots of
I have a question for Amy.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, can you give us an example of I think it's more income driven for your program, right? But can you give me an example of what you've done on like a couple homes that you've done rebuilding? And I think it's more people with low income for you, right? Thanks.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for the question. Yeah, people to qualify for our program, it needs to be an owner-occupied home. They would need to be at 50% of area median income or below. And then we work with people who are seniors, who have a disability or have children in their home. And honestly, the work that we do really depends on the needs of the house. We have a program where we simply go in and install grab bars in bathrooms and other locations so that we can prevent falls. We have gone into homes and replaced thermostats because that's what was required. And we also can re-roof a home. We can replace furnaces, do HVAC work. A lot of our volunteer activities are more around like building ramps and doing other kind of external things, but the work that we do is really based on the needs of the homeowner when they apply, and what resources we have at that time.
Is there a max too, Amy? Do you know?
A max of
Like if they needed, for example, a new roof, that's expensive, right? And so I don't know
It
if
is. So some of our government funding does have a maximum that we are allowed to put into a home. Some of it we are maxed out at $15,000 per home in value. And we also work with a lot of amazing companies throughout the South Sound who will sometimes donate certain things so that we can keep the budget where it needs to be and still be able to do the work for the homeowners.
Great, thanks.
Of course.
Can I
thank
help?
you.
Can I add to Amy's
Please?
comment?
Absolutely.
So I'm terming out this year. This is my final year as a board member. But I want to share like how amazing the work has been. I got involved with Rebuilding Together in 2013 in Seattle, and it's pretty amazing. We just had Rebuilding Day on April 27th, and so I got to sit with the cutest woman you'll ever meet. And she had quite a story. I mean, her husband had passed, and she's been in this house, and she had this team that came together, and it's a great opportunity too for team building. I know that Coldwell Banker has actually had a day where we came out and we helped another community member. But one thing, so with this woman, she needed yard work done. She needed a new toilet installed. She had problems with her shower that, she needed a new shower head. There was so much going on throughout the day that she was kind of overwhelmed. And so my job as a board member, I got to sit and chat with her. We watched Murder, She Wrote, one of my favorite TV shows. And so it was just a really great opportunity. And then when she was done, she couldn't thank us enough. It literally changed her life. It made her house so much safer for her that she's able to pretty much age in place. And so if you are looking for team building, if you're looking for an opportunity to really learn about the work and serve the community, Rebuilding Together, I can't say enough amazing things.
Thank you, Corey. Yeah, we've got a lot of great things going on in the chat as well. Everybody check out Kathy's comment. She does wear lots of hats. Kathy, do you want to talk a little bit about what you put in there? Do you want me to read it? It sounds
No,
better coming out of your mouth than mine.
Yeah, I come to this conversation twofold. I do work with the city of Tacoma, but have been a realtor for 12 years, 12 plus years, from Seattle. And I was one of the folks who I would categorize as kind of middle-class Black displacement to Tacoma. I've been here for 2.5 years. This is where I could kind of afford to buy a home. And I do put that asterisk there because I don't know if it was, I think it was you, Corey, that was sharing the, kind of what your mortgage would look like. So, based on your median income. Now, my income for Tacoma, I'm above median income, right? Which is not super difficult to do here in Tacoma if you're moving in. So I also participated potentially, this is an interesting thought, of the displacement of local Tacomans as I migrate to Tacoma, leaving Seattle, which is, I think, an interesting layer when we think about displacement and homeownership in the Black community. Oftentimes people are not able to stay in the communities they love and want to live in. Having said that, I found a wonderful home here in Tacoma, so no complaints there. Although it was a very emotional process for me moving here, and I wrote about it in my master's thesis a couple of years ago. I focused on affordable homeownership, and if anybody wants to connect on a pilot project regarding Black homeownership and having individuals become their own developers, I'd love to talk about that. I'm also super interested in talking about new funding sources and new loan products that don't increase the weight of being overburdened with debt regarding, homeownership and mortgage support. On the other side of that, I also work with a lot of BIPOC farmers, maybe not a lot, but a handful of Black and Indigenous people of color farmers in land acquisition, and successfully acquired a property out in Centralia, so further south, that was 43 acres for an organization, a regional organization called Black Food Sovereignty Coalition, with the support of Washington Farmland Trust, conservation easement grants from WishVic, and a whole myriad and stack of support that I would love to talk about at some point as to how difficult navigating those processes are, and the unique situation a realtor is in supporting these nonprofits. And I've certainly done a lot of work that isn't in the realm of real estate, supporting those organizations, going above and beyond, so that we can navigate these systems that really weren't meant to provide them access to either land acquisition or home ownership. Lots of gatekeeping, and I could talk about that forever. So that's me nutshell, trying to like blah. But if you're interested, please reach out. I'd love to connect with people.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Yeah, she's a rock star. If you don't already know Kathy, so wearing lots of hats, that's a good way to put it. Doing lots of great work always. Thank you for that. And then Jeff put in the chat, is this money that is to be allocated, Jeff? It has not yet been. It's for people.
Yeah, this money has not been allocated yet. The RFPs are coming out from the state this month,
That's
and
right.
then yeah, will be dispersed later in the summer to
Okay.
organizations that are involved. Yeah,
Great.
and people who are in need. Yep, from
Okay.
my understanding. I don't work for the state, but I have some knowledge of how things are moving.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for putting that in there. I'm not going to read it all out since we are having a little bit of getting up to the end of the time here, but yeah, please check that out in the chat. Lots of good information.
Yeah,
Rosemary,
one of the things,
go
just
ahead.
real quick, one of the things that I think people like might not know about the CRP is that it's not just for, you know, low income individuals. It's for anyone impacted by harms done by the state's decades long drug war. So there's no income qualifications. This could be to help someone buy a home, or it could be for the realtor business owner who's working with the homeowners, or it could be for a construction company that is, you know, Black owned or Latina owned. So, you know, it's for anyone.
Okay, great.
Just putting that
Thank
out
you.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that distinction. I'm not super familiar with them, and other people in the room might be more familiar, but I'm so sorry if that was a silly question. But this is the place for any questions, silly or otherwise. Rosemary had a quick question that it looks like Champagne answered, but I'll read it out. I'm wondering about whether there's much progress in making home ownership available to unrelated folks who would be into co-owning a home. And Champagne said, noticeable trend towards multi-generational living. Shared housing is becoming popular among various demographics. Shared equity housing, cooperative, designed to balance individual equity growth with shared ownership. Do you want to speak any more on that, or add any more details to that, Champagne?
I can speak to it a bit. There are people, I think, on the call that know a bit more. I think Bambi posted some links in the chat as well. So the impacts of rising housing costs for long-term residents, particularly those with lower incomes, are significant and multifaceted. As home values continue to rise due to increased housing growth, which is something that people have mentioned, and demand in Washington, long-time residents face a lot of challenges in affordable housing in their current neighborhoods. So affordable housing, as families evolve, there's a noticeable trend towards multi-generational housing, which is something that I'm seeing, and something that I also encourage when speaking to my clients or clients that I'm working with. Families are choosing larger homes to accommodate multi-generations under one roof, and they're pulling income together, their credit and down payment for desired larger homes, and so that they can afford to stay together, and it achieves financial stability, and then they enjoy just the dynamics of multi-generational living. And this is purchasing a multi-generational house that is achieving and addressing some of the affordable concerns that we're seeing in housing today. Additionally, shared housing is becoming, I think, popular, but it's always been around, but it's something that we're talking about more commonly today, or it's more in the forefront. And this is happening amongst various demographics, so including students, older adults, singles, and lower waged workers. In shared housing, individual rent individuals rent private rooms while sharing common facilities like kitchens and bathrooms and other common spaces. And sometimes the terminology can be a bit confusing because shared housing can involve self-contained dwelling as well as living shared arrangements. So it's kind of a two-faceted deal. And then something that I've just become acquainted with is co-ops. And this is because I've written my first purchase and sale agreement on this. And so this is another innovative housing model. It's a shared equity housing cooperative. And this is something that is more common on the East Coast, I think, and that we're actually seeing happening here on the West Coast in Washington State. So it's designed to balance individual equity growth with a shared ownership. In this cooperative structure, I think residents are shareholders of a corporation rather than owning specific units like you would see in a condo. So each shareholder's ownership has stake which is determined by the size of the unit. And in some cooperative models, it enables funding of improvements over time, which will keep entry costs lower for residents as they sell it or as residents come in to purchase it. So I think it might be something like, as Dawa was saying, and I'm not as familiar, the land trusts. So it might be in a similar trend of that, but I think all three of these trends are helpful in combating affordable housing. It's something that I'm seeing as I continue on supporting residents purchase homes.
Thank you so much for that. That's yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, I know that shared housing has been coming up a lot more. I mean, it's been around for a while. I've experienced it in different ways too. But yeah, that's really interesting and another option. Co-housing has several different formations, some that look more like condos where people on their own have their own unit. Very few lenders provide products for co-housing. Interesting. Well, that sounds like
I actually think so, and I think someone could, yes, Bambi, and this is why she just popped on, because this was a challenge I had when I was trying to write my purchase and sale agreement. So I'll actually let her speak to this.
You bet. I'm so excited to be here. This has been such an inspiring place to be. I'm so excited to see all the work that everyone's doing. You know, housing's super complicated, and we all know what the prices are for the idea of a single family detached home. It is just not going to be a reality for many of us for much longer. And that's both good and bad, right? We know why it was there in the first place. It means that not everybody has had that opportunity. But there are some innovative ways to start thinking about creating housing opportunities. And there have been recent legislation to help us. So, for example, the HB 1110 bill, which passed in 2023, that's the middle housing bill. So it is making it legal for us to be able to have, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, sixplexes throughout many areas in our state. And that will be able to create affordability for us. The smaller that particular home is, the more density that we have, the more affordability you're going to get. And then the other two that you were mentioning here, one is called the limited equity cooperative model. And that is that idea of having kind of a cooperative share loan. So people are sharing the ownership of the entirety of their building together. And they have a share of the loan that they do. They also cooperatively run the space themselves. And again, it's a scenario where because people are sharing expense, it's going to make it more affordable. And then you do have the land trust model, which is a scenario where you have two things happening. You have the land trust basically taking the cost of land out, which makes already a huge difference in what your payments would be. But then on top of that, they also, when you sell, just like at Habitat, they're limiting the equity on that sale. So you're able to get something, you can get a nest egg, you can move forward, you could stay there forever if it works for you. But it's a way to step in and be able to make it more affordable. And with the Covenant Homeownership Act that was passed, we also went back last session and got a budget proviso to basically say there is just no way we're going to address the needs that we have if we don't start thinking about how to change production. And so all of these are solutions for production. So that proviso allowed $500,000 that will go through WishFIC to basically study all of the options to be able to bring first-time home buyer options onto the market and what those will be. And you all have already touched base on all of them, in addition to offsite construction and other types of things. So that is actively happening. And the idea would be to report back to the legislature and then say, here's what we think is going to work. And now give us some more money to get it done, because we all know the resources have to go into production. Also, during this spring, I will be convening a group to start thinking about how we can make this easier. How can we make limited equity cooperatives and land trusts easier to do for underwriters, easier to do for banks? So it doesn't become there's only 2 banks you can get the loan from, or 2 banks who understand what it is. Their banks are risk averse. It makes sense. So we need to start getting in some language in legislation to say this is actually a legitimate thing, and it's actually the beginning of the real solutions we need to be able to move the needle. We need new innovative solutions. They have proven themselves. They've been here for decades. So I hope that any of you will choose to join me in that process, become one of those stakeholders and engage. I'll put my email here inside the chat. And I'll also encourage you, if you are interested in leaning in on the policy side, I'll put in a link here for the Black Home Initiative policy digest that I put out each week that keeps us connected about how we can lean in on policy, because we are a network, and it's just so amazing to be in this room and see the purpose of a network is that everybody brings what they've got. They bring it to the table with their own experiences, and then they share it with others. So, come into the room. It's definitely a lot of work in the making, and so super excited to be in this space and see you all. I'm sorry I couldn't join more. I am a little under the weather, so I won't cough. I'll go ahead and come off camera.
Thank you so much, Bambi. All of the work that you do, and just a little bit of a plug. HGC is having their Affordable Housing Week next week, correct? Yep. So lots of cool and lots of great events going on next week as well. So this conversation is never over. We are at time, and I'm just gonna plug really quickly. Tomorrow we have our closing reception for all of Affordable Housing Week. We do have Friday, have some events Friday, like the Community Land Trust and Legislative Panel. But the reception is going to be an awesome in-person opportunity to network and meet these people that are in these rooms. If you've been to more than one panel, you're going to be able to network with some of those people that you've seen their names, seen their faces, heard about their work. It's a great place to just come and eat, drink, be merry, and just talk housing. So it's going to be really fun. You can purchase a ticket on our website through our link here. I can send it to you right now. And yeah, I just hope that you guys continue to engage with these topics, whether it's through us or HGC or your own organizations. This work is so important, and it's not going to stop. So we are all here for the same purposes, looking at the same issues from different perspectives, and looking for similar strategies to help our community. So I appreciate all of our panelists. This wouldn't have been a conversation without your expertise and your input and your time. So I really appreciate all of our panelists today. Thank you, Bambi. Thank you to everybody, Dawa, for all of the community land trust plugs. That's going to be an awesome conversation on Friday. So come over to my neighbor's house at the church and let's talk some community land trust. I'm gonna let you all go now. I hope that you have a great rest of your day and hopefully see you next time.
Thanks, Casey, for all that you've done. These are
Thanks, Mark.
great meetings.
Thank
See
you all.
Hopefully see you all at 4 o'clock, or at not 4, 3.
Yeah, Hilltop Walking Tour. It's at 2:30 at the Tacoma Housing Authority main
Oh.
office.
Yep.
There will be
See you in
coffee
a
and
bit.
cake.